So, ich sehe ein Streaming-Zeichen, ich sehe einen Daumen nach oben. Dann würde ich sagen, Maja, starte ich.
Gerne.
Ja, erstmal auf Deutsch, gleich nochmal auf Englisch. Liebe Grüße und einen schönen guten Abend in die Runde. Heute die Mai-Edition des End Plastic Soup Interviews und, das werden wir gleich noch merken, das erste, was gleich auf Englisch gehalten wird, denn der Gast ist englischsprachig, gerade schon gesagt, Emily Stevenson. Und ich habe jetzt natürlich das Ganze hier auf Englisch aufgeschrieben. Jetzt muss mein Kopf das gerade nochmal wieder auf Deutsch hinkriegen, aber das kriegen wir hin. Ich kann ja schon mal so viel sagen. Emily ist 23 Jahre alt, also ein sehr junger Gast, die aber schon sehr viel bewegt hat, nicht nur in ihrem Heimatland, sondern auch, ich sag mal, international in der Presse für Furore gesorgt hat, nämlich durch sehr kreative Aktionen, um auf ein großes Umweltproblem, nämlich die Plastikverschmutzung bzw. die Meeresverschmutzung durch Plastik aufmerksam zu machen. Sie studierte marine Umweltwissenschaften, marine Biologie an der Universität von Plymouth, hat dort ihren Bachelor's Degree gemacht und studiert aktuell an der University of Exeter und wird uns auch noch erzählen, an was genau sie denn da forscht, denn das ist auch ziemlich interessant. Also man merkt da auch schon die Liebe zum Strand und zum Strandleben zieht sich durch ihre Biografie. 2017 hat sie Beach Guardian gegründet mit ihrem Vater zusammen. Das war ganz spannend im Vorgespräch zu erfahren, wie kommt das eigentlich zustande und wie arbeitet es sich eigentlich mit einem Vater. 2019 hat sie den Point of Light Award bekommen vom britischen Premierminister und den Young Citizen Award von Rotary Great Britain und Ireland. Und 2020 ging es dann nicht mehr höher. Sie hat den Diana Award bekommen. Das ist der höchste Award, den eine junge Person bekommen kann, wenn sie sich sozial engagiert. Also auch darüber werden wir wahrscheinlich ein bisschen reden, denn auch das geht ja nicht spurlos an einem vorbei. Wobei ich bei Emily, das kann ich schon mal im Vorfeld sagen, absolut bewundere, dass sie sagt, das ist alles schön nice to have, aber eigentlich sind meine Ziele ganz andere, nämlich junge Leute beziehungsweise Leute durch alle Altersschichten wirklich dazu zu bewegen, selber aktiv zu werden. Und das finde ich absolut beeindruckend und ich bin gleich sehr gespannt auf das Interview. Das Vorgespräch war wirklich sehr schön. Die Frau hat auch Humor, das mag ich sehr gerne. Und es ist wirklich beeindruckend, was Beach Guardian als eins ihrer Projekte wirklich bis jetzt bewegt hat. Ich kann ja schon mal ein bisschen...
Jetzt musst du gleich umschalten. Jetzt ist sie nämlich da. Ja. Jetzt musst du gleich aber...
Hi, Emily, wherever you are. You're probably here.
Hi everybody. I'm so sorry I'm late. Thank you so much for holding the fort in my absence.
No problem. I was worried that you might be stuck in traffic and then rushing it. So I hope you came home safe.
Yep, safe and sound, and I'm here now.
All right. So you probably heard my introduction a little bit. That's good. And I'm going to repeat it so you make sure that I didn't say anything weird about you.
I heard Beach Guardian and Emily, and that's about as much as anyone needs to know.
It up a bit. Okay. So I'm going to do the introduction again in English. So hello, everyone. Welcome to the May edition of the interview in the End Plastic Soup series. And the first one held entirely in England, which is basically, Emily, your fault in a way, because you're our first international guest. And I feel very honored to have you here. My name is Annika. You already know me. I'm a member of the E-Club of the 1850 in Germany. And I'm, again, very honored to have you here tonight. Just a few words for our audience about the structure of the about 60-minute meeting. Emily, we talked about it already beforehand. First, I will introduce Emily a little bit more in detail before I ask you, Emily, 5 short questions where you're only allowed to answer in either one word or one sentence. And after that, the interview, which will last for about 20-25 minutes, we'll go a little bit into detail about your work with Beach Guardian and about anything that you've been doing in the past, continuing now, and probably also about the future of either Beach Guardian and about your projects. And after that, the audience can also ask questions. And you just pick the people who have questions, and then that sums it up. So, the introduction of Emily Stevenson. You are a 23 still, I think, year old, environmentalist. I don't know if you want to be called that, from the UK, and you studied marine biology at the University of Plymouth. And currently, you are studying at the University of Exeter to receive your master's degree in conservation science and policy. And in 2017, you founded the award-winning social enterprise Beach Guardian together with your father, Rob. And in 2019, your work received recognition as the Point of Light Award recipient from the British Prime Minister, and you received the Young Citizen Award from the Rotary Club Great Britain and Ireland. And you received the Diana Award, which is the highest award that any young person, I think, can achieve from for social action and humanitarian efforts. And in between, you focused a lot on, getting people to take action, be it in schools as well as private persons that, should just take care of their environment and, do their part as much as they can. So your focus is pretty much to engage people to take action in any way. I think I summed it up quickly.
I couldn't say it better myself. That was perfect. And yeah, that's exactly who I am. Thank you for a wonderful introduction.
Okay. So you grew up in Cornwall, right? So let's go get to the quick questions. If I was lucky enough to visit Cornwall, what is one must see for me?
Trevone Beach.
All right. Number 2, and we will get to the what I mean by that in a moment. Your favorite crisp flavor is? Just one.
I know, but I'll get in trouble.
All right, so let's keep this a secret, I guess. But to get another question, is it really sure that you have prawn cocktail crisps?
Do you know, I was going to say that's my favorite. Let's go with that. It's vegetarian, in case anybody would tell me off.
Because it's new for us Germans. Okay. According to your LinkedIn profile, you are the ambassador to more than 6 foundations, such as Big Blue Ocean and Keep Britain Tidy. What makes an ambassador a good ambassador?
Passion.
All right. One piece of advice you'd like to give to an 8-year-old?
8 or 80?
8.
8. One young person can make a difference.
Right. And I think you're a fortune teller. What would you like to say to an 80-year-old?
One mature person can make a difference.
Awesome. I think that's a good start into the thing, because you clearly made a difference in all of your actions. And when I did my research, I found out that one really big difference that you made was at the age of 11 at school, when you had to work on a school project, and the project was to create some art inspired by the beach. And all of the other kids were doing something with, I don't know, seashells and anything else, but you did something with plastic. So do you think that was the first step into your later work for Beach Guardian? Could that have been the first step in a long way of steps?
Yeah, I mean, you've certainly done your research, and that goes back a long time ago, but that is really where this all began. And exactly as you say, I was in school here in Cornwall, and we were set a class project, and I was focusing on plastic pollution on the beaches. And this is 12, 13 years ago now. that I was finding plastic on the beaches in such vast quantities. So it really shows the problem of the issue that we're facing is that it's not a new problem. It's certainly a growing problem. And back when I was 11 years old, I wanted to do everything I could to tackle it. So exactly, you're right, you know, because I've been lucky enough to grow up in Cornwall, I've always been exposed to plastic my entire life. But it's because of that I now want to give my life to tackling this.
Right. And what I really admire, or what shines through all of your projects, is this really cool creativity that you showed. I mean, when I talk about the crisps, you probably knew what I was going to talk about, because when you were, I think, 21, like 10 years later, you made Walker's, well, I don't know if we're allowed to say that brand name, but it's a Walker's crisp dress. Can you tell us a little bit more about that project?
I can show you. Hopefully it'll come up behind me now. Can you see this?
Awesome, yes.
So this is the dress that I made out of crisp packets for my graduation from my marine biology degree at the University of Plymouth. But the story goes much further back than the dress, in that when we first started doing our beach cleans with Beach Guardian back in 2017, we really started. We found a lot of crisp packets on our beach cleans, and the most common brand that we were finding was Walker's. Do you have Walker's, or is it Lay's maybe? Lay's, yeah. So they're owned by the same company, by PepsiCo. And PepsiCo is the second largest food and drink manufacturer in the world. They are massive. They're also in the top 3 plastic polluting organizations in the world. So a big player in this game that I find myself in. Now, the thing about these crisp packets is that, as you probably know, they all have use by dates on the back of them. I've actually got a good one here I can show you. Oh, that I found on a beach. So here, this is a Smith's crisp packet, and you might be able to see on there it says Royal Wedding. Yeah. Now, this wasn't a recent royal wedding. It wasn't William and Kate's wedding. This was Charles and Diana's wedding back in 1981. So that makes this crisp packet 16 years older than I am. And you can see the colour is still perfectly preserved. You can read everything on the back, and it's still perfectly strong. The durability is exactly the same as the day that it was made in 1981. And this is the problem that we have with plastic. It's that whatever plastic that gets littered today will still be here when my grandchildren have grandchildren and their grandchildren have grandchildren, and much longer. So I really wanted to bring attention to these crisp packets, to this non-recyclable single-use packaging. And to do that, I wore this dress. So that's the story behind it. From the dress came absolutely magnificent, unimaginable things that I never thought would be possible. So I had some fantastic opportunities to go live on Sky News, BBC. Right. And they said to me, you know, the reporters said, Emily, you've done what basically any conservationist can do. You've highlighted a problem. What is the solution? So I said, there's already an organisation called TerraCycle. They operate across Europe and the US, as well as here in the UK. And they can recycle crisp packets. So I said, all they need to do is team up with them, offer a scheme where people can collect crisp packets and then send them off to be recycled. Well, a week later, I see this in the news. Walker's crisp packets recycling scheme announced. And then later that year, Walker's launches recycling scheme after storm over crisp packets. And now over 45 million crisp packets have been recycled using this scheme. And it just started with packets of crisps on the beaches here.
Wow. You told us that these crisp packages will probably be there even when we are all gone. Do you know how long it takes for those crisp packages to dissolve if they are dropped into the ocean or dropped on the beach?
Well, this is information that nobody really knows. You know, scientists have guesstimated that kind of there's upwards of kind of 500, 600 years for plastic to degrade in the environment. But of course, we can't actually know for sure because plastic has only been in consumer use for about 60 years. So even the very first plastic bottle that was ever made will still be here now and will still be here in 500 years time. And there's actually not a great deal of evidence to suggest that, unless it's kind of decomposed by microorganisms, and that's a very small scale, but there's not real evidence to suggest that plastic ever goes away, because people think it breaks down and down and down, but it doesn't. It just breaks up and up and up into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. So it may look like it's gone, but actually it's just smaller.
Right. And well, in between this big media presentation, which also I think got you on the front page of the Telegraph, is that right?
Yeah, I've got a photo of that somewhere actually. I can show you. Where is it? Here it is. Look, there we go.
Yeah.
That was, you can see the difference in me. I look quite young there actually. This was 3 years ago. But the crisp packet that I'm holding in my hands there, this got me on the front page because that crisp packet is the same age as I am. It had a use by date on the back of 1997.
Wow. I mean, in between being on the front page of the Daily Telegraph and before that launching Beach Guardian, what projects did you start, or what things did you start, maybe even at schools, to get people, or young people especially, involved, or well, to get them interested in taking care of the environment? Because that's, in the meantime, well, now I think the awareness has gotten more and more for young people to take care of their environment. But I mean, how did you start? How did you just go to a school and said, "Ding dong, here we are. Can we give a speech at your school?" Or what did you do?
We pretty much did that. No, I mean, when we first kind of started Beach Guardian, for instance, when we do a beach clean, we're very lucky to have many young people come along to the beach cleans. You know, it's not just going into the schools. We're able to connect with them out of school as well, which I think has a huge benefit. You know, having outdoor of the classroom opportunities to learn is incredibly beneficial. But when it comes to schools, we have a designated schools program here at Beach Guardian. We've now worked with over 65,000 school children through that. And it's essentially just kind of saying to schools, if you would like us to run a workshop, if you'd like us to come in and talk about these issues, we will. And because the schools are kind of working incredibly hard as it is, and that they're spread very thin, these teachers work so hard to have an outside organization come in. It's very beneficial and it's been very well received. So yeah, we basically say, we're here, and if you'd like us, we'll be there.
So when you say we, how many people are involved in Beach Guardian at the moment?
Still pretty much it's me and my dad. And then we've also taken on my brother. He does all of the media and stuff for us. He's absolutely fantastic. And then when I say it like that, it seems like we're still very small and you know, family based, which of course we are, but we have a pool of volunteers, thousands and thousands of volunteers across the world that do so much for us. You know, our team is made up of volunteers, and you know, we're a community.
Awesome. And do you share the impression that within the last 2 to 3 years, young people have become more conscious when it comes to, well, in a way, not saving the environment necessarily, but even making the right choices when it comes to what products am I going to use?
Yeah, I think everybody has suddenly become more aware, but I I think part of it is being aware of the issues,
Right.
but I think one of the biggest shifts that we've seen is actually more people knowing that they can make a difference and more people having that empowerment. You know, when I was at school, and I'm talking very young now, 6, 7 years old, I was told, you know, if I want to make a difference to the environment, I switch my lights off. And it's kind of like, well, that's not very empowering for a young person because you know, as a young person, you don't really understand the concepts of energy and electricity and carbon and that kind of thing, although many of the young people I've engaged with do understand it more than I do. But also, when you switch off a light, you can't necessarily see the polar ice cap that you're saving from melting. But with other things that young people are doing to preserve the natural world, you can instantly see the difference you've made. Greta, her worldwide campaign uniting millions of young people, you can see the difference that you're making. You're getting people talking about these issues. Young people volunteering with us and doing beach cleans. They go to a beach, it's covered in plastic, they do a beach clean, and the beach is clean. It's an instant reward, and they can see that they've made a difference, and then they always go on to what next. So I think it's more down to people having that power and realizing that power that they can make a difference.
As much as we condemn social media at times, do you think it plays a crucial part in that? I mean, not only seeing the difference, but also making other people see what you have done and this instant kind of reward. I mean, it is sometimes weird if the other way around, it would mean, oh, if I do it, okay, but I need other people to see what I'm doing. But that can also be used for a beneficial cause.
Yes, I totally agree with you. There is definitely a dark side to social media,
Right.
and we've been exposed to it. You know, there's always going to be 20% of the people you engage with will just never kind of see things the way that you do. But the other 80%, it's the most magnificent platform to get your message out there. And for a small organization like us and not for profit, it's free. You can't get better kind of advertising than social media, and a better way to getting your message out than Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, because pretty much everyone uses them and it's free.
Right. And my latest research has to do with the Thrive project. And I wanted to ask you in my short questions, I was thinking about asking you what makes people thrive, but I think it would be more interesting to let you tell a little bit about it, because it has to do with engaging people or getting people engaged that struggle with mental health. And I think that is a very interesting twist in this whole development. What can you tell us about it?
Definitely, and it's a really good time to be talking about this because it is Mental Health Awareness Week this week. I'm not sure if that's worldwide or here in the UK, but of course every day is important to talk about these kinds of issues. And this is something that I couldn't see so clearly at the beginning of Beach Guardian. I never saw us going on a social movement as well as an environmental movement. But the first thing I realized in myself that I was more happier. I had more control over my life. I was, you know, doing well in things that I'd never really done well in before, and just kind of thriving. And I just thought that I was just kind of becoming older and happier and wiser, maybe, but I'm not sure about that. But actually, what it was that kind of did all of those things for me was beach cleaning. Going outdoors, spending time with people, giving back to the community, having a purpose and a passion, having that to kind of channel everything of myself into made me better and made me happier. And there have been times I've really struggled with my mental health and well-being through some, you know, various experiences. One in 2017, I think it was, right before we actually started Beach Guardian properly right before the crisp packet dress. I had major facial reconstruction surgery, and I was in hospital, and I had both of my jaws broken and put back together again. And it was a really traumatic experience for me. And I knew it was coming. I knew I was going to have this surgery. So I kind of prepared myself for the physical pain. But the mental pain of being in hospital, nobody ever kind of prepares you for that. And I can't even begin to imagine what it's like for people in hospital with you know, the current situation of things, how dreadful it must be for both members of staff and patients. Right. But when I came out of hospital, I was in a very kind of dark place, and I just started beach cleaning more and more and more, and I found myself bouncing back and better than before I'd gone into the operation. And there's so much research looking into the benefits of community engagement and working, right, as opposed to kind of benefit your mental health and well-being. For example, one of the biggest relievers of symptoms of heart disease is getting a dog. It's not kind of getting some miracle medicine, it's having a pet dog. And that's not because the dog physically, you know, improves, you know, reduces the impacts of this disease, but it means that you're going outdoors, you're walking, you're exercising, you're talking to other dog owners, you've got that joy of having a dog. My beach cleaning is like having a pet dog.
Right. And what I really think is very interesting is just to get to know a little bit more about, well, what you're working on at the moment when it comes to your master's degree, which is pretty well, it's a master's degree, so it's nothing that you totally can grasp when you're just a person that has nothing to do with marine biology like me. But maybe you can walk us through a bit what you would like to focus on, both in your master's degree and maybe even in the future of Beach Guardian.
Well, honestly, I don't think that there's anything that I've done that other people wouldn't be able to understand, because a lot of it I still don't understand. Right. So I'm not a master of anything. But there is some good news, and this comes down to me not updating my bio, but I completed my master's this week. Wow. I got my final transcript at the beginning of this week. So I have actually now completed it. So that's really great news. But what I was studying at my master's, a side of plastic pollution that really interests me is microplastics. You know, I'm kind of trying to get away from the crisp packets and go to something a little bit less obsessive, although I'm pretty obsessed with microplastics too. So microplastics are any plastic less than 5 millimeters in size. I've actually got some here. Let me get them and I can show you. Bear with me. I have plastic literally everywhere, and I've just moved house, so it's all a bit everywhere. So these are some microplastics here. They look a little bit like peppercorns. I'll get them out. I've sterilized them, so they're perfectly safe. Can you see these?
Yes.
So these are just little plastic pellets, and these are what we call biobeads. And these are used to filter our sewage here in the UK. And of course, because these wastewater treatment plants, they spill out into water systems, aquatic systems, quite often microplastics will spill out into the environment too, including these biobeads, which have been used to filter our sewage. So what I'm interested in looking at is if there are certain bacteria living on microplastics in the ocean, and it's really cool. The microplastics are like microbial reefs, if you like. There's almost like a miniature coral reef attached to these microplastics made up of bacteria and all sorts of other microbes. And this layer of microbes around the plastics is called the plastosphere, which I think is really cool, and it sounds a bit like Star Wars. And I'm interested to know what bacteria are in this plastosphere. Do microplastics carry bad bacteria around aquatic systems, and do they then expose humans to these bacteria? Of course, we find microplastics on beaches, so could they then be carrying bacteria from sewage and other areas of pollution? And something that really interests me is how microplastics may play a role in the increase of drug resistance in these bacteria as well. So we may have potentially disease-causing bacteria on microplastics, which also then became resistant to drug treatment. And then what's the role there in terms of human health? Are we ingesting these microplastics in the bacteria? Is the food that we eat ingesting these microplastics in the bacteria, and that kind of thing? So that's what I've been looking at, and I'm hoping to progress onto the next stage, PhD level, but we're not sure about that yet. Still working on that.
That would have been my next question. Like, are there any? Because I think every field of research has their big universities where that's the must go to. Is there any such place in Europe where you think, oh, this is the special place that I would like to go to or to work in?
Yeah, I mean, the university that I've finished my master's at, and I'm now working as a research assistant still at the same university, is exactly where I want to be and the best place for me to be. I've kind of struck gold here. So where I'm working with world experts in the field of drug resistance and microbiology, coupled with huge expertise in plastic pollution and microplastic pollution. So I'm really in the best place. I just hope that I can stay for longer.
All right, we're keeping our fingers crossed then, I think.
Yeah.
All right. I would like to go to open the conversation now to our audience, but before that, they put something in the chat that I promised to ask you beforehand. So let's see here. We have I have two things that we would maybe would like to know if it's true or false. There was a discussion about how much plastic has been produced in the recent years, and Maya, I think you wrote down that between 1915 to 2015 there has been the production of plastic has been the same as in the last 5 years. Maya, maybe you can tell a little bit about it.
Yes, I was told by a scientist from German universities that this was the right number, and the plastic pollution, the plastic production is even increasing now due to the pandemic. So it is really the highest alert you can ever have.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense to hear, the consequences of the pandemic. We have seen such severe consequences here in PPE pollution. Over the last year, we found nearly 2,000 littered face masks and plastic gloves. We've never, ever, before April 2020, we have never, ever found a face mask on a beach clean or litter pick, and now we find them every single time we're going out. So and it's not just the PPE, but because of COVID, understandably people are more cautious of what they're touching, what they're using, and there seems to be this perception of single-use disposable items that they're perhaps more sanitary, more clean, more safe than reusable. So people are using more and more plastics.
Right, and one other person here says that he thinks 46% of plastic in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is fishing nets. So do you know anything about the percentage of fishing nets in the oceans?
So I'm assuming this person has recently watched Seaspiracy, the new documentary,
Right.
which I have watched myself, and I had to turn it off because it broke my heart to watch the slaughter of cetaceans at sea, and certain cultural practices. That kind of thing really affects me, to see that kind of destruction of life so clearly. That stat about the 46% of plastic in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch being fishing related, I think some aspects of that are definitely true. Of course, from the publication, the way that it was expressed in the publication, that it is true. I believe, and I'm open to be corrected on this, that the study that did that and came up with that stat as their outcome, they were only testing buoyant plastic, so the plastic that's on the surface. And it's thought that upwards of 70% of plastic in the ocean now sinks. Of course, through my research, I look at animals, bacteria colonizing plastic when it gets in the ocean. And when plastic gets colonized by wildlife, it gets heavier, so it sinks. So a lot of the plastic that goes into the ocean is sinking to the seafloor. And the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, many people have speculated that actually when you're in the area of the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, you would never know that you're there because it looks quite pristine. It's actually what's on the seafloor. There's probably a Great Pacific Garbage Mountain at the bottom of the seafloor. So it'd be interesting to see what percentage of what's on the seafloor is fishing related. Also, I believe that this study calculated the 46% by weight, and if we've collected and kept every single piece of plastic that we've ever found on a beach clean, if you were to do it by weight, I would say probably about the same stat, about 50%, maybe 60% of what we find by weight does come from the fishing industry. If you do it by number, 99.9% of what we find is microplastic. Because it's so small and ubiquitous, it's estimated that there could be 51 trillion microplastics in the sea already. That's more stars than in our galaxy. It's a different story. So if you look at it by weight, then that stat is correct. If you look at it by number, I'm sure that 90%, if not more, of the plastic in the Great Pacific Garbage Patch is microplastics. Many of those microplastics will have come from the plastics industry, or there'd be consumer items that have broken up, like plastic bottles and crisp packets. So we can't just say half of the problem's down to the fishing industry. It's down to everybody.
Right. And what I really like about you is I just realized again, first of all, the passion that you have for it, but also the way you explain it when you put the relation to the stars and so on. So you always try to, use images that stuck in our head. And I think that could be the problem with being an environmental activist when you have the problem that we don't see a lot of the problems because, as you said, a lot of the stuff sinks down to the bottom of the ocean. When you have, for example, the Great Barrier Reef, everybody says, oh, that's so sad because all of the colors of the corals are gone. That's something we can see. But the things that we don't see, we also have to put, to get people aware of the things that we cannot really see, that we just see the effects of. And now we are from Rotary clubs all over Germany in this case, I think, or do we have any guests from other countries? I don't know, but I mean, in general, we are
from Austria.
Perfect. We have a guest from Austria.
Although I'm French, but I'm living in Austria.
Perfect.
I'm from Austria too.
Awesome. So Austria represent here. So you now have us here, and we all want to take action. So with you being an expert on that, on hands-on things, as we've heard from your example, we can also benefit from it, because doing something good for other people can also have a good effect on yourself. But in general, what do you think? What can we Rotary clubs do?
Well, you're already doing it. My best piece of advice, and I could literally sit here for hours and reel off, different things that you can do. Swap to a reusable drinks bottle, have a reusable coffee cup. It's just boring, and everybody knows these they're almost common sense solutions. But the one that everybody forgets about, and is the best piece of advice that I can give, is that the best thing that we can do to conserve the planet is to talk about it. All we have to do is talk about the planet. It is the most human, the most accessible thing. We do it every single day without even realizing. By talking, we can connect to something. We can connect to people. We can connect to the environment. Once we're connected to something, we want to protect it. I think most people, or a lot of people, think that being a conservationist requires sacrifice, or being a volunteer requires sacrifice. You have to give up so much time. If you want to save the planet, you have to be a vegan, like all of these things that people don't have the time, money, or space to do, especially now with COVID. If you look at the most basic of human needs, needing safety, security, and health, we don't have any of those things at the moment. So how could we possibly give time to being a conservationist? Well, just talk about the planet. That is enough.
And thank you. And Maya just mentioned the Rotary and Plastic Soup Action Day on June 5th. So that's a good reminder for us, where we can all, make it a little bit more visible on the same day, and where we can all take our part. And I have two more questions from the audience before I hand over to the audience. One of them, which was posted right in the beginning, was, do you know, and Christoph, you have to correct me if I pronounce his or her name wrong, Melati Weisen, the Bye Bye Plastic Bag organization. Do you know him or her?
I know the organization.
Okay.
I don't know the person. I would love to know the person, but I know the organization, and they are absolutely fantastic, phenomenal, achieving such incredible things. And this is what I love about plastic pollution and other environmental campaigns, is that we are never alone. We're not fighting this on our own. There are so many people doing amazing things, and it's when we're together that we're stronger.
Right. And the last question from the audience up until now is, some companies advertise products made of recycled ocean plastics, Nadine Müller says, for example, shoes and jeans. How do you know whether this is true or just greenwashing? Greenwashing is a very prominent thing at the moment. Yeah.
Before I read that that Nadine had already said greenwashing, I was going to say, that it could be greenwashing. Greenwashing is a really big problem, and it really upsets me, actually, greenwashing, because it tricks people into thinking that they're doing the right thing. Usually it's taking money as well from people who want to do the right thing. And then when that person or people finds out that actually the purchase or service or act that they had done wasn't actually benefiting the environment, they then kind of took 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, because they thought, well, I tried, and not only did I give up my time or money, I was also tricked. What's the kind of point? And then they'll never do anything again. And I think it's really damaging, greenwashing. I think using recycled ocean products is part of the solution. I don't think it's the solution. We can't recycle our way out of this problem, unfortunately. We have to reduce, but first and foremost, reuse. And as a plan C, D, E, F, G, down at the bottom, we go to recycle. there are some fantastic organizations that are genuinely doing amazing things, and it's not greenwashing. Here in the UK, we have Odyssey Innovation. They're taking recycled plastic fishing nets and turning them into kayaks. We have Waterhaul. They're turning plastic fishing nets into sunglasses. They've also started taking plastic face masks and turning them into litter pickers, and it's that kind of circular thing that I love. It's a lovely story. It's you know, it's a visual thing, like we're saying, having a bright blue face mask turned into a bright blue litter picker. It's an amazing thing, but it's not the solution. It's part of the solution.
Right, and I've seen Maya sneaking her way out of the camera focus. What do you have for us, Maya?
We created this bag. It's called an emergency bag, C with SEA, and it's filled with education materials. And we, as Rotary clubs, we give them to teachers. We teach them, and we have really good programs to create awareness in schools.
I love it.
Made of fisher nets. Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah. I sent one to you. Give me
I
your.
I was going to say I'd quite like one of those.
One from me.
Thank you.
And I think this is a very good example to I think combine two basic things. First of all, it's not only sacrificing, but it's also turning something. I'm not going to dumb it down to say turning something good into bad into something good, but taking action and getting something out of it that you can hold in your hands and that you can say, okay, we turned something into, well, something else. So this is very inspirational, I think. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it does come down to taking something bad and turning it into something good. I think that is it.
Yeah. And I mean, in so many ways. I mean, and even in the end, hopefully, I'm always thinking about the thriving aspect. Even turning something a bad feeling into something good. I mean, people have to benefit from something, and when you benefit from it, you are the more convincing you can be to other people, right?
Yes, I think that is so true. And it's been a hard lesson I've had to learn in that not everybody likes the beach.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, but not everybody likes the beach. Not everybody likes the sea. Not everybody likes the environment. There are some people that just could not care about trees, wildlife, and that's fine because there are things that I don't care about. You can't ask everybody to kind of feel the same about one thing, but there is one thing that everybody does care about, and that's their own and their loved ones' well-being. And that's why I really enjoy doing this research that I'm doing at the moment, which is looking at the human health side of things, because if somebody's not going to do it because the beach is covered in plastic, then they'll do it because their stomach is covered in plastic.
Right. Again, we have the images, right? So yeah, true. And I think that's the best way to make a stop here for me to talk and maybe hand it over to the audience. So if you have any more questions that you would like to ask in person, you can just feel free and ask your questions. I think that's okay, Emily, right?
Of course, please. Yes, I welcome it.
All right. I'm going to mute myself now and see if there are any questions.
I'm just scrolling through and I'm looking for people unmuting or with hands up.
Hello, Emily. This is Claudia. Hello.
Hello. I can see you.
Nice to meet you now. I think about one thing I had in your webinar, and I saw this, that you talked about the difference between fishing and fishing. You have the local fishery and then you have the industrial fishery. And I think the same thing is the problem with the fishing nets, because I suppose that those local fishers are well, are more careful about their old fishing nets, but the other ones, they don't care about it. So I think that the most part of the fishing nets somewhere in the oceans, there's some from Chinese trawlers or whatever. So I suppose it's an interconnected problem.
Well, the first point I'd like to raise is that I love your jacket or shirt or whatever that is. It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you.
The first thing that caught my eye. But it's such a good point. And the kind of story that I say for this, and it's not one of mine, a fisherman actually told me it. And this is that you wouldn't compare a vegetable patch farmer to a beef herd farmer. You wouldn't compare the two at all because you don't see them as the same kind of industry. You see it as a small scale sustainable vegetable patch farmer and an industrial beef farmer. They're two separate things. But with fishing, we don't do the same thing. We just say it's the fishing industry. But there are the exact same categories as we see with farming and fishing. There is the small scale, sustainable, local, traditional people passing it down through generations. And then there is the industrial, the extractive, the unsustainable. There is a world that exists where we can have fishing and farming and a sustainable environment. But we have to move away from industrial and towards local, sustainable, small scale. Of course, it makes it difficult when our human population has never been bigger and continues to grow. We have to sustain life, but there are ways of doing this that doesn't take from the natural world. And there are boats, vessels at sea where the fishermen will go days, months without even touching a fish because it's just all done industrially, mechanically. That's no longer fishing. That's something else. So it's not, we can't boycott everything. We can't even boycott plastic. We need plastic. Plastic is not the enemy. It's just the ways that we use it is the problem. So there's always ways of doing things in a sustainable and unsustainable way. We just have to try and find all of the sustainable ways and do it quickly.
All right, we have one more question from the chat. Olaf Della asks, can you tell something about plastic-free cities in the UK?
Well, what I can tell you, and this is very biased because it's where I am. So I don't know if people who live in the UK don't even know where Cornwall is. So that's why I say I'm not sure you know where Cornwall is. But if you think that let me hold it this way. This is the UK. And if you imagine Scotland is up here, London is about here, Cornwall is my thumb. It's right down the far end of the country. And I'm kind of up here on the north coast of Cornwall. And there is a beautiful little fishing town called Padstow there where I live. Now, Padstow was the first town in the UK to go plastic straw free, which is really amazing. Of course, now plastic straws are banned in the UK, so it's, you see it across the whole of the UK. But Padstow was the first to kind of make that move before it was legislated. And there are stories just like that across the whole world. It's not just in the UK, but in the UK, I'm not sure how this is replicated across the world or into Europe. But we have Surfers Against Sewage, and they do plastic-free communities where they get people in their communities to work with schools, businesses, and government to get rid of plastic, single-use plastic, not getting rid of, everyday plastic, but single-use plastic. There's this fantastic work of people in their communities going plastic free. But actually, I don't think the term plastic free is a particularly healthy term, because I don't think we should be aiming to go plastic free, because as I've kind of said, plastic isn't the enemy, it's the way we use it. I think we should go single-use plastic free or unnecessary plastic free. But the other plastics, if you look at healthcare, for instance, plastic has probably saved millions of lives by keeping things sterile and preventing disease in the hospitals. We need plastic for those things. But if we keep using it for cutlery, straws and plastic cups, then we won't have enough for the healthcare. So it's about having the unsustainable and sustainable and choosing the sustainable.
Right, and I think we have one last question, and I think Mr. Della, when I saw your reaction, you probably have a connection to Cornwall, right? All right, he nods his head. All right, last question from Lena Tiga: is the plastic in fast fashion also a problem that occurs in the oceans or on the beaches?
Hugely. I've absolutely loved this whole session because I've had the opportunity to talk about every problem of plastic, and these questions are absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. Really picking my brains. So the fast fashion is a problem that I hadn't really focused on until this year when I started looking at microfibers from our clothing. And there's some fantastic research done by a researcher called Dr. Imogen Napper at the University of Plymouth. And her research looks at the synthetic polymers in our clothing being released from our washing and into the aquatic systems. And her research found that per wash, so for an average wash of synthetic clothing in the washing machine, I think about 6 kilograms of washing, up to 700,000 microfibers could be produced and entering aquatic systems, you know, going into the wastewater treatment plant, going into the rivers, going into the streams and going into the oceans. 700,000 is an unimaginable amount. And yet every day when we put the washing machine on, that is going into the environment or into the wastewater treatment plants, where typically it's not very efficiently removed. Now, I've been working recently with an organization called Planet Care. They're based in Slovenia, and they make filters for your washing machine to filter out these microfibers. And they are fantastic, but at the same time, terrifying, because they sent me a filter that I put on my washing machine. And once you've used it about 20 times, you have to change the filter. And I changed the filter the other day. I could not believe all of the fibers that I would have normally sent into, down the drain and into the system. They were captured, and seeing it like that was very visual, seeing all of those fibers that would have gone from my clothing into the environment. So fast fashion definitely has an impact in the side of, the materials that it's made of. But actual clothing we find littered on beaches. One big problem we have is, like fishing nets, clothing is very it entangles wildlife, particularly here in Cornwall. Clothing we often find entangled around pink sea fans, which are they're listed as vulnerable or threatened on the IUCN Red List for endangered species, and they're just getting removed from the seabed. Corals removed from the seabed from discarded clothes. So huge problem.
What I don't know about the situation in the UK, but I mean, maybe the others, the audience can agree. What I find very interesting in Germany, we don't, or a lot of people don't use detergents or like liquid detergents for their washing machine, but they use those pads where they are plastic and then they dissolve or something like that. Or they use the latest fashion in Germany is like they call it perfume, that it's just little pearls that you put into your washing machine to make it smell a little bit better. And I think that's so counterproductive. I don't know where this trend comes from in Germany. Seems a little weird. But yeah, I think that was the last question for the day. And I'm so happy that we got you as our guests tonight. So again, I think we can all agree, and I've seen several people writing it into the chat. That was a really, really good, inspirational evening with you tonight.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for all of the fantastic questions, and thank you for allowing me to talk about the things that I want to talk about. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Annika. It was so inspiring. And I hope many, many people, many Rotarians will join us on the 5th of June and take action, create awareness, and also build alliances. That's the most important thing, because Rotarians can make a difference, but they can't change the world. So we have to fit together and work together. Thank you, Emily. It was great to have you here. And you know, it is Youth Month from our organization. So you fit in this program extremely well. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. And I'll do all I can to support you on the 5th.
Thank you so much. Please send us a picture, what you're doing then.
I will do. I will. It's the end. Did you say it's End Plastic Soup Day?
Yeah, well, it's called Action Day, Environment Day, and we have End Plastic Soup from our organization. So many Rotary clubs are having actions, are taking actions. They're working together with Rotary actors, interactors all over the world. So yes, join us.
I will send you a picture of me cleaning up a plastic soup.
And please send me your address so I can send you this emergency bag.
Oh, you don't have to ask me twice.
Write it down in the chat.
I'm going to write that down, actually.
Okay. Thank you
so much, everybody. Take care and stay safe.
Right. You too.
Thank you.
All right.
I will wait till I have your address, Emily.
I'll email it to Annika and
you send it to Annika. That's good. Okay.
Perfect.
Hope to see you again.
All the best. Best wishes, everybody.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Annika, danke. Ich hoffe, es